Going live. Let's see. Okay, we are live. We're gonna give it a couple seconds. Actually, give me a second as I just want to quickly just check Twitter, make sure it's working there. Yep, perfect. It is live on Twitter. It's live on YouTube. Well, cool. What's up, fam? Name's John, aka president and founder of Tesla Owners of Silicon Valley. We are the largest club in North America, an official partner to Tesla. And I've been kicking off this interview series of just interviewing people within the community, people who've done a lot for the community or have had, potentially ex-Tesla employees, et cetera. And what better way to our second interview series really kick it off with Trevor Page, aka if you know him on Twitter, he's the Model 3 owners handle. It used to be an online forum, which was ultimately converted from Model 3 owners to Tesla owners online. Again, we're going to get more into that. And a little bit more about him. He is a 30-year IT veteran. He's been an early Tesla follower, especially after the release of the first Roadster. He watched the development of the S, X, and then obviously the Model 3 very closely. And he's obviously played a huge role in the early days of the Tesla online community with the starting of again, what was started in 2015 as the Model 3 Owners Club, but later renamed to Tesla Owners Online. And obviously, as we know, it's an awesome forum where you can post and talk about the latest news and various topics, latest rumors. And his site obviously grew to be an important part of the community, to be able to access information, to connect with other owners across the world. Ultimately, he ended up selling it, so now it's under new ownership. But he has paved the way for a lot of us owners that are here. So I wanted to flash up a quick view of like what the site looks like today before we bring him in, so that we can. So let's just see it. So here you go. You can see. You can see the website. This is in its current format today. And again, it's obviously changed a lot since he has, handed this over. But again, I just wanted to get into just talking to him. And one thing, some of you who may not know about the early days of even the Tesla owners of Silicon Valley. So I got my Model 3 in July of 2018, and I got on Twitter because that's where all of the Tesla owners were. And I came to find out about the owners program. It's an official affiliate to Tesla. And Trevor, obviously when you're first starting out, you tag everyone and their mom. And Trevor was, of course, one of the biggest accounts on Twitter at the time. And one of the things that separates him, I think, really amongst people in the community and just in general, is the fact that one, not only is he a genuine person, but he actually really wants to help. And so I found out I needed 25 VINs, and again, because he literally ran a online forum, he started retweeting a bunch of my stuff. And next thing I know, we got the 25 VINs. But he's always just been a huge supporter of the community, really, kind of like the godfather of Tesla owners of Silicon Valley. But that's kind of a little bit of the history of our relationship. So he's always had, like, for me, a special place in my heart just because of what he did for the club. He didn't know me. We hadn't met or anything. He's in Canada, I'm in California. And so we're a ways away from each other. And still, he took the time to make it happen. All right, let's go ahead and bring him in. So let me unmute you. Hey, Trev, what's going on?
Not too much. How are you, John?
Doing good, doing good. Thanks for joining us today. I know it's 3 hours ahead. It's like 6 o'clock
East
your
Coast.
time.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it.
Yeah,
Thank you very much. Always glad to be on and talk to friends and family and everybody in the Tesla community.
Yeah, well, awesome. So I think, again, I kind of flashed up, what Tesla owners online looks like, but I would love to just talk to you about, how did you get involved in this community? First, let's talk a little bit. I kind of gave a little bit of the intro about, how you kind of started following the Roadster and then eventually the S and X, but what what got you into Tesla One? And then how did you like, why would you even want to start like an online forum? And then, it sounds like you probably pivoted from your days of working in IT to this.
Well, it's actually a very good question, and I think the easiest answer for that is it's basically melding two of my interests together. One of them is I'm a car guy. My dad was always a car guy. Grew up around cars, tinkering, and all that kind of thing. So I have a love for cars, obviously. And then, I've been in IT for over 30 years, just running my own business and doing things for other people. And one of the things that I have always done, from being in IT is not only setting up forums and running them and helping others and that kind of thing, is I've always joined forums for whatever car I owned at the time because I always felt that it was a good way to talk to other people in the community. Now, there are things like local car clubs and that's all great, but sometimes you get a different perspective, maybe some different knowledge and stuff based on different geographical areas. So online's kind of perfect for that kind of thing. So Tesla Owners Online, formerly Model 3 Owners Club, was born out of my love of cars and my knowledge of IT and putting the two together to create, an online community. That's where it started.
Yeah, what was it different? What was different about the Tesla community, right? So it sounds like, you've owned several cars. You're like, hey, let me,
Too many cars.
let me, yeah, exactly. Well, I guess for the record, how many cars have you did you own before your Tesla?
You know what? Gosh, I've lost count. I've probably owned about 20 different cars.
Okay.
And you name the make, I've probably owned it. Except for obviously not things like Bentleys or Lamborghinis, that type of thing. But
Yeah.
domestic makes, Japanese, German, that type of thing. Um, I think for Tesla, like I said in the blurb or the intro, my interest in Tesla really began officially when the Roadster came out of stealth mode, basically. However, my first exposure to electric cars really came about, I think it was around 2000. There was an article in Popular Mechanics or Popular Science, one of the two, and I forget what it was, but it was on AC Propulsion about the T0, little yellow sports car that they had made and had not commercialized. And that was really the interest that got JB and, of course, Elon interested in doing electric cars.
Yep.
So when I saw that, the light bulb went off in my head, and I said, "Man, that would be really awesome to have, a proper electric car because it, tickles my fancy as far as the tech is concerned." And I think the timing was just about right because commodity sells from things like laptops at the time, the 18650s. That's what everybody was using at the time. So right around the turn of the last century. So I think the timing was right for that to actually begin. But I started paying attention to Tesla, sort of during the Roadster days. Obviously, the Roadster was very expensive, and two seats not very practical for a family and stuff. But I always thought, this was very, very interesting. However, I really paid attention when I saw, and I forget, I think it was on. Do you remember there was a website called digg.com? It was started
Yeah.
by so that was started by Kevin Rose, Screensavers fame. He had been leaked, and I don't know where it came from, although I have my suspicions. But anyways, he posted a picture of the Model S beta prototype, whatever you want to call it, the
Yeah.
day before it was officially announced. This was in March of 2009, if I remember correctly.
Was it leaked?
Yeah, it was leaked.
Okay.
Yeah. Somebody passed it on to him, and he leaked it on his
Of
website.
course.
When I saw the picture of the Model S, I lost it. I thought, man alive, is that beautiful? And right then and there, I decided my next car, at some point, maybe not then and there, was going to be some form of electric car. So that was really, at that point, I said, I need to follow this company a lot closer. So I followed the Model S beta program through the whole development. And of course, in I think it was February 2012, Tesla had their presentation and they showed the Model X. I'm an owner, you're an owner, you know about that car.
Yeah.
And, the sedan is all great and stuff, but I'd been driving SUVs for many years. So the Model X tickled my fancy a little bit more than the Model S. And at that point, I said, you know what? this company's going to go places if they can just kind of, make money and stay in business. I think they've got a good, bright future ahead of themselves. So that's when I started saying, maybe I should put some money aside to help, because I knew these were going to be expensive cars. So I started putting some money aside for the eventual purchase of something like that. So that's really where my interest in Tesla began. And I was always kind of like on the sidelines, just kind of watching and paying attention and watching the forums and stuff. But after a while, you can't, and the Tesla started talking about the Model 3. Now, it wasn't called Model 3. It was called Blue Star, if I remember correctly, which was it Blue Star or White Star? It had a code name. It was one of those two, and I forget what it was. And, obviously they said that we wanted to cut the price down. Now, the Model S was officially announced that it was going to start at $49,900. Of course, it never actually happened. But Tesla was hoping to get somewhere in the $25,000, $30,000, $35,000 range. And I thought, well, okay, that's probably a little more achievable. So again, put more money aside. And I hopped onto the Twitter community. My Twitter handle at the time was actually my name, but I didn't have many followers. I didn't know what to do with it. But I think the starting of my YouTube channel, the forum, and the official Twitter was all done all at the same time, just as a way to just get eyeballs and talk to people and see and feel out the community a little bit and see where things kind of started. So I registered the forum in October of 2015. So this is before the Model 3 was announced, but I knew that I had a feeling, it was a gut feeling, the Model 3 was going to be a big deal. So obviously with my interest in IT and stuff, I said, why don't I start a forum just dedicated to the Model 3? Let's see where it goes. So registered in October. And of course, it was already ready to go by the time March rolled around in 2016 when the car was officially announced. So that's where it started.
Yeah. So what was it? What were you calling it? If it was White Star, Blue Star, when did you officially, or when did you decide Model 3 owners? Was it like when did you give it a name? Or did you have like a code name before that? Was it like White Star owners or?
No, it was, I was thinking about different names, what I was going to call it. And I kind of wanted it to be like a club, and I wanted it to be, and I didn't want to use the name Tesla in it right away. I don't know. It just I was just brainstorming one day and the name just came to me and I said, okay, that makes sense. Let's register the domain and see where it goes. So,
Okay. So when it started, like at what point did things like I think really start to take off where you're like, all right, I'm gonna do this full time? Like what was the mix? Because I assume you were working full time at the time, right?
yeah.
When you
No, and I had my IT business for many, many years. And of course that was my full-time gig. The forum was still a lot of work, because if you've never started a forum before and you have zero content, man, it takes a lot of work to get that going, to attract people.
yeah.
So that was almost like a full-time job in itself, even though it was kind of a secondary thing. Yeah, it was a lot of work. And to answer your question about things really taking off is I had decided to start a YouTube channel pretty much at the same time. Now, I hadn't decided at the time what I was going to do with the YouTube channel, but I had one in place. So I figured that I knew that things were going to go somewhere, because the very next day, so March, what was the day? March 31st or 30th, 2016, whenever the Model 3 was announced. I decided to do a quick video just to reiterate some of the things that I had seen on stage.
Mhm.
So, for those of you who may or may not remember, when Elon was on stage, they had a 3D model of the Model 3, kind of rotating behind him, showing different aspects of the car. And I went frame by frame by frame, trying to spot interesting things about it. So I did this video, and it's just me. This is, you don't see me. It's just a voiceover talking about the things that I had noticed in the video. And I posted it on YouTube. So, and I linked it to the forum, and I did in my Twitter account, and it went viral, like boom, just like that. And today, I don't know how many videos, it's probably got a couple million views on that video. But I knew that there was a pent up demand for something about this car. So I kind of used that as an impetus to, to start, doing something more serious, maybe with the YouTube channel, to co-brand everything. So it kind of all melded together. It was very organic. It wasn't planned. It just kind of
Of
happened that way.
course. Okay. And then like when did the forum start to pick up? So obviously, or
Oh,
was it
right then
more
and
of
there.
like right then and there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Well,
Crazy.
again, it's because I had linked everything to the forum, and like all three, the YouTube channel, the Twitter account, and the forum were all co-branded,
Yeah.
triple branded, whatever you want to call it, together. So that's when it really started taking off. And obviously the run up to the Model 3, the production ramp and early deliveries and stuff, it was just like every day, it was just like, just kept going. So,
Okay. Well, first off, like good for you as far as like just linking all together, because I think that can be a game changer, because sometimes you only get that one moment, and to be able to
mhm.
like make sure you had all three linked, because otherwise it could have been a miss. Maybe your YouTube channel and your Twitter account are doing great versus the forums kind of left behind. Just talk to me a little bit about, what were, some of the biggest things on the mind of Model 3 owners during those early days? What were, what were people talking about? Obviously, the first one was like, hopefully this company doesn't go bankrupt. But, what were like, what was the community like during those days, especially from an online standpoint, and stuff that you were, as far as the content you were creating, and what was the focus back then?
Well, I think the number one thing is people wanted a lot more information than Tesla was talking about, because Tesla, very much like Apple, they're a very secretive company. They only talk when they're ready to talk. So obviously there was a lot of interest in the features of the car. But I remember very distinctly, and I think anybody who's followed the Model 3 right from the beginning, there were two things that people were losing their minds over. One of them was the lack of a grill on the front, this flat front with no grill or anything like that. People were just like, oh my God, they were just losing it over this. Because at the time, remember, the Model S had a fake nose cone on the front, right? And it
Yeah.
wasn't until April of 2016 where it got the facelift. So it looks like, the Model X as it does now. So people were losing it over that. And the other one, of course, was the single screen, right? Because every Tesla had the dual screens, right? So everybody's like, oh, it's not going to work and you're going to crash. And so obviously those things, that's old. That's all ancient history now. People are used to it. It's and the thing I try to remember to try and tell people is that just because you see something that you don't like doesn't mean that it hasn't been thought through. When Tesla's designing a car and it comes out and let's say it's got, well, in the case of Model 3, it's got a single screen. It's not like they made that decision today and the day after it's like, okay, here you go, we're doing a single screen now. This was thought out many, many, many months and many years before, so that when it comes out, it's like, it's old school for them. They know it's going to work. It's just you don't, because you haven't been exposed to it. So it's the same thing. The Cybertruck came out, everybody lost it over the looks. And I'm
Mhm.
like, guys, just chill, just relax. We've been through this before. You'll get used to it. It'll become a new normal and everything's cool, right? So those were the things that I remember very distinctly about the early days of the Model 3.
Yeah, I think the thing that you can't ever really predict, or you really never can think of, is the stuff that Tesla thinks about. They're already thinking 2, 3 steps. The Tesla Semi event happened literally last week, and just some of the stuff that they were going through on like what a driver would have to go through, and they're literally making this car, this semi, this truck, similar to driving a Model 3. And you saw them plugging it in, setting it up with the trailer. I mean, they're, again, I'm not a truck driver, so I wouldn't know, but similar things with getting rid of the grill, getting rid of just having one screen with a couple of stalks, like obviously very innovative. So I think, kind of again going back, so it sounds like there was a couple of big topics, but as Tesla's not releasing stuff, is it just like, how are you keeping content going, and then at what point are you realizing like, okay, I need to just go all in on this and just put what I feel comfortable as far as a regular paycheck going into doing this.
Um, well, at the time when I was running the forum in the early days, I don't like ads. I don't, I mean, nobody likes ads and nobody likes advertising and all that stuff. So I deliberately kept ads off the site. But as the site grew, so did the hosting costs. It was getting very expensive. For those of you who don't know, when you're running a site of this caliber, it's not $5 or $6 a month. You're into some serious money. Um, so I had, at some point I had to make a decision. It's just like, well, if I'm going to do this and keep the site going and stuff, I got to turn on ads, and we got to do something like subscription memberships and maybe even some sponsorships and stuff. So all of those things rolled into one, really helped keep the site going and keeping it alive, thankfully, because otherwise I would have gone broke.
Yeah. And then okay, so you start this forum, you have you had obviously that first video that went viral. And obviously potentially, more rumors are coming out. At what point, and then obviously you went all in on this. When did you start to meet people and what maybe if we back up, did you notice something different about the Tesla community even back then? Like as this Model 3 like hype was growing before you obviously, you saw what it is during those years. But was there any signaling? Because I mean, was this just like another huge launch of another, big car that's coming out, that has been hyped maybe like back in the day, maybe the Prius or the Type R Integra, or I mean, obviously I'm not through and through a car guy, so I wouldn't really know. But what was, and you who've owned, 20 plus cars probably, what was it, did you see any signaling of it being different, or did you think that this might just be a, a hyping of a car that would just potentially, fizzle out at some point?
Well, as I said before, I had been member of various, car clubs and online forums for just about every car that I've owned before. Um, but the Tesla community was very different in the sense that, and I think you really have to boil it down to, this is not an existing car manufacturer who happens to be making a new type of car, being electric in this case. It's a new company from scratch. And the thing that I've noticed about Tesla in a lot of cases is they use a lot of things from Apple's playbook. Maybe not their stagecraft, but everything else, a lot of ways is very much like Apple. And I've been an Apple user for God, I mean, since 1988, I think it was something like that. And that's a very, very tight community as well. So I've seen a lot of synergies basically between the two. So that's what I've really noticed. And I've made a lot of friends, obviously online and in real life, through not only the forum but all through through Twitter and YouTube and everything. But it's a very much a different type of community. Now, you're probably going to ask the next question, which is like, has it changed? And it has changed a little bit.
We could save that. We could
you
save
can save
that.
that. Okay,
Yeah.
we'll save it for
No,
later.
because
Then.
I want to kind of, I really want to talk about, your involvement in building, the community before obviously we have today for what it is. But so I think, okay, so it sounds like, it's similar to Apple. I would agree with that, especially given, a lot of the hate and, kind of like tight following that you had, especially even when I joined, because I'm, kind of late to the party. But at what point did you start actually like meeting people? It's like, it's like you have this online community and like, at least I've seen people around you, especially when I met you a couple times, like, you are kind of like the godfather, you just, you played a huge role into this and everyone knows you. I mean, like, and so, at what point did you start like meeting people or, did that ever really become a thing? Like the mad Hungarian as well.
Yeah, well, he's a brother from another mother. He's a very good friend of mine. No, I think the first time we actually started meeting people in real life was early in 2017. Now, if you go back in time, in addition to me doing my videos on YouTube, one of the forum members who happens to be someone who lives fairly close to me reached out, and his name is Kenneth Bacor, and he reached out and said, "Listen, I do a podcast. Are you interested in doing maybe a podcast with me?" And I said, "Well, I'm already kind of doing this other thing and stuff, but maybe we can do a show together and just kind of put our brains together and maybe do something interesting on a weekly or monthly basis, whatever, and just talk about Model 3 or Tesla in general." So we started doing the Model 3 Owners Club show. And at one point, we decided let's just have a meetup with a bunch of people of like-minded, and that's what we did. And I forget exactly the date. I'd have to go back through some of my archives of when that happened. But we got a whole bunch of people together, and we just sat around and just had some coffee and some donuts, whatever, and we just talked about Tesla. And so Ken was a very early helper in that respect because he helped organize some of the virtual meetups and we did the show. So yeah, he was instrumental in helping out with those early days and getting that going. So that's really when I started meeting was local people. And then I started going to some Tesla events. I don't know if you have any pictures in front of you to share out and stuff, but I did send you a few.
Yeah, let me bring those up right now.
Mm-hmm.
Give me a
I have
second.
to say, I've been very fortunate to have been able to go to several different Tesla events, including the Model 3 delivery event. I got to see the Model 3 silver prototype. Okay. Oh, you got some pictures there? Yeah. Is there any particular, you want me to explain the pictures as you click on them?
Yeah, let's hold on. How come it's just, let me just close out some of this I'm having. Okay. So let's where should we start? Should we
Go
do you
back
want
to
to
the
start
start.
down here, I think, or should I go to the top? Sorry, guys.
Doesn't really matter.
So
They're not in any particular order. Okay, so
no, I know.
All right, so this picture is interesting. These were the very first Model 3s delivered to the Toronto area in Ontario. Now, at the time, Tesla had basically a service location and a showroom, which was also a service location. And I happened to find the lot where they were holding these cars. This was probably 2, maybe 3 days before they were delivered.
Oh,
So these were
man.
the very first Model 3s that showed up in the Ontario area. Now, there were probably some, maybe 1 or 2 already delivered in Vancouver, mainly because, Tesla being on the West Coast, they had a chance to send the cars a little bit, maybe a few days sooner or whatever. But anyways, these were the first ones. There is another picture in there of a gentleman. Yeah, the red one right there, if you click on that. So that was the very first, that red one right there was the very first Model 3 delivered in Toronto, in Ontario, I should say.
Wow.
And I happened to go down there for that day to witness it and talk to the guy. And so everybody was really happy. The Tesla employees didn't want me taking their picture, but that was fine. So, there you go.
No, yeah. Very cool. Let's just hit some of these other ones. Obviously, you had
There you go.
the
That's my
Model
first
X.
Tesla, Model X. Now, I know a lot of people are asking. You're a Model 3 guy. What are you doing buying a Model X?
Totally.
So there's a story behind this, and if you'll indulge me, I'll tell it a little bit.
Do it. Let's do it.
So obviously I started saving to get, for me, the Model 3, when they started talking about it, was like, okay, if it's $35,000, whatever the case may be, okay, that's affordable. I think most people can swing it. So I started saving money. But at the same time, I'm like, I don't know about a sedan. And I've been driving SUVs for a long time. I like tech. When the Model X was introduced, or in 2012, I was like, "Oh, this is sweet!" It's the Model S, and it's got these Falcon wing doors, and it's an SUV, like sitting up high off the ground. So I thought, well, maybe I don't know, we'll see. So, anyways, a few years later, when it's time to, and they started delivering Model 3s here in Canada in May of 2018, a few months prior to that, I had just come off a lease of another car, a gasoline car, and I wanted to buy a Tesla, but the Model 3 that I wanted, which was a performance fully loaded, wasn't available. And I didn't want to buy a rear-wheel drive long-range Model 3 just because I just didn't want that model.
Yeah.
And I also have a rule. I don't buy the first model year of any new car. It doesn't matter the manufacturer. That's just the rule I have. And of course, then you look at your bank account and you go, well, maybe I can get a Model X. So that's what I decided to do. So I got my feet wet with Tesla by buying a Model X. So that was me on delivery day. So it was a white Model X with the white interior, 6 seats, and loved that car. Didn't like the range though. It was a 75D. Now you're in California, so in the winter months you lose a lot of range. And so, anyways, we ended up doing a lot more long distance trips than we anticipated. And supercharging twice as much as any other car, it gets a little old after a while. So anyways, I had that car for just over 2 years. And of course, then the Model 3 Performance had come out and the price had come down. It wasn't the first model year and stuff. So that's when I jumped in and finally bought a Model 3. And I sold that earlier this year, and I'm currently in a Model Y. I really like the Model Y. Model Y is like, I call it the Goldilocks Tesla. Yeah, because it's like a 3 and the X put together. It's just perfect. I think that's why it's selling so darn well.
Yeah, I mean, it's the not only the total addressable market for that car, but it's the best bang for the buck, at least in my opinion,
Oh,
right? You get
I
the
think.
most,
I mean,
you get all the,
the new Model X, as lovely as it is, I mean, it costs an absolute fortune.
yeah,
But as far as tech is concerned, that thing's the cat's derriere. But I do like the Model Y. So does my wife. So
yeah. And
any more
those
pictures
are
you want to
the
go
thing.
through?
Yeah, let's do it. So let's start
This is my
here.
crew. So that's me on the left. That's Brad Garcia, also known as Garsh on Twitter. He's one of our chief moderators on the forum. He's still very active in there. He's a really great guy. He's not very far from me. He's just down in Pennsylvania. To the right of him is Melinda. She's also a moderator on the forum, good friend. And then over to the right is that's Brian Schoenbeck, and he was a moderator on the forum for a number of years as well. So that was at the Model Y event. So we had gone
Oh,
down to Tesla in March of 2019. So we were sitting in the hotel lobby and we decided to take a selfie for everybody.
very cool. Are they still involved? It sounds like they're still involved with the forum even now.
Yeah, Brad and Melinda still are. Brad has moved on.
Okay.
Or not Brad, but Brian on the right there has moved on.
Okay.
Hey,
Here we
there's my
have.
buddies. All right. So this was taken in Montreal. Now, Zach and Jesse. So Zach's on the left, Jesse's on the right.
Oh, of course. Yep.
So these are the guys from Now You Know, good friends of mine.
Mm.
They had come up to Montreal, and this was in April of 2018. So before Model 3 deliveries had happened in Canada, we had shown up. They brought their brand new Model 3. And so everybody had a chance to see the car in real life before deliveries had begun. So we went down there, and that's my buddy Ian. He's not in the picture, but he was there with me that day. So we hung out with those guys, had a great time.
Very cool. We all in the Bay Area. We know who this guy is.
Hey, that's my buddy Ryan. So interesting story with this. I had gone down to see the Tesla factory. Let me think here. Was this? So I was in California twice that year, once in June and then I came back in July, 2017. So I had come down, and I think it was for it was a VIP event. That's what it was. So anyways, Ryan called me. Ryan's a very good friend. He called me. He says, "Hey, why don't you come over to my house and we can do a podcast together?" And I said, "Sure, okay." So he picked me up. We went over. So that's Ryan and myself standing in his living room taking a picture before we did the podcast. I think it was on episode 50, if I remember correctly. Don't quote me on that.
Yeah. And what is he on now?
Oh,
Geez, like
he's a machine.
8.
I don't know how the hell he does it.
Yeah, every week.
Yeah. Well, it's a labor of love for him. Good for him. He's a great
Yeah,
guy.
yeah,
I love him.
yeah. No, that's awesome. And then this looks like the Model 3.
Yes. So that's the Model 3 delivery event. So that was in July. So the month right after. So those were the first 35 or so Model 3s. I was sitting in front row. There's Kenneth right there. So the guy there with the glasses at the bottom of the screen, that's my compatriot, Kenneth. We both went down to that event. Yeah, that's Ken right there.
Yeah, very cool. Obviously, this is at the Fremont factory.
Yeah, right behind at the back of the factory. Yeah, there's Bjorn Nyland. So Bjorn was one of the reasons I got involved with doing Tesla videos on YouTube and general education. That was at the Model 3 event. So I ran into him there waiting in line. So great guy. So yeah, he's one of the reasons I started a YouTube channel. Oh, there's me at the mothership.
Yep.
Yeah.
Funny thing is, it probably doesn't look much different today. I mean, I go there, probably.
Oh, I'm sure inside the factory's changed a lot.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Cybertruck. So so those are my buddies. So that's Ian on the left there, Mad Hungarian. You can follow him on Twitter on the left. Over to the right of me, I'm in the red shirt, of course. So that's Dax. That's my friend Dax. And then beside that is Ryan. These are three Canadian fellas all with me. This was the day after the Cybertruck event. So we got up in the morning, we went to Denny's, had breakfast, and we said, let's go and do a podcast somewhere. Where do you want to go? I said, well, let's drive down to let's go down to SpaceX. So that's the SpaceX factory, literally right behind where we're sitting on the red chairs out in front of the Tesla design studio. So we sat up outside and had a podcast right outside the design studio. Good times.
Yeah, and it's a bummer they closed the public access or the supercharger that used to be right there. So this is like a legacy.
Well, that was the
very
very first supercharger ever made.
Yeah, totally. Mm-hmm. Obviously,
there's Earl.
We all
Mr. Funk Puppy himself.
Yeah, 28 delays later, if
28
you know
delays
him,
later. Yeah, yeah. Great guy, a wonderful sense of humor. Yeah, so that
clearly.
was me and Earl there by the Cybertruck. What you don't see behind that smile is the agony and the pain that I was going through at the time. I had messed up my shoulder several months before, and
Oh,
that took
man.
3 years to heal. I'm still
3
not
years.
100%. Yeah, 3 years. I'm still not 100%.
Oh, man, I actually remember I running through there. I think there was, because I had to leave. I was in and out that day, but I remember I was
Well, I
like, "I
ran
need to
into you
grab a."
when I first came in, and
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
I was hopped up on drugs big time. Not the good kind of drugs. It's just you know what I mean.
Yeah,
I was in
yeah,
so much pain because of my shoulder. So when I ran into you, of course you're a tall fella, and I was looking up. I'm like, oh yeah, that's John. And I'm sorry, man. I'm so sorry. I know I said hi, but I was looped. I was totally looped
no,
on painkillers. It was brutal. That was the worst day
yeah.
of my life.
Oh,
We did a
man.
podcast together, and I explained the whole thing. It's called the
Okay.
Passport Incident. So if you want to go back and watch it, you'll understand. I tell the whole story behind it. So
Crazy. Okay. Well, I didn't know that. That's some information. But no, I was like, I think there was like a couple people. You were one of them, because that was the first time like we had met in person, and so like I just wanted to make sure that like I at least got a selfie, and then, but yeah.
that was
Oh,
right
we
after
all
the
know.
windows were busted. I walked in, and I saw them smash the windows. I was a little bit late for the event. I was about 5 minutes late for the event, so I came in and I snapped that picture. Lots of fun. That was a great night.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think that's it.
Hmm.
But yeah, no, I mean, tons of history. Obviously, you've just been a huge part of the community. Obviously, been a huge reason why the community has grown. And I mean, I think you kind of had brought it up. I mean, let's talk a little bit about potentially, you kind of, deciding to eventually hand over or, sell off, Tesla owners online if you want to. But really, like, what was that decision? And then let's just talk about the community today.
Um, so selling. How can I approach that? Um, well, I'm
Or I
not a
guess maybe if it's better worded, what, like, without even getting into maybe selling, like, I guess, like, what was maybe leading you to eventually kind of maybe step or take more of a backseat approach on, the things that are going on nowadays?
okay. So I think really what it boils down to is that when you're starting a community and, Tesla Owners Online by this year was 7 years old. And, it's just a grind all the time, just content and Twitter and YouTube and everything. Um, and I'm not a spring chicken. I'm not in my 20s, not in my 30s, not in my 40s. I'm in my 50s. And, your brain starts saying, you got to retire someday. What are you going to do? And I didn't have an exit plan. I didn't know what I was going to do, but COVID hit. And COVID gave me a lot of time to think about the future and what I wanted to do going forward. And one of the things was to start thinking about next steps. And the forum was still doing great, and it was all good. um, but I was just like, well, do I want to keep running this thing forever, or do I, is there potentially a way to hand it over so that it continues? And that was the biggest thing that I had, is that I didn't want the forum to just die on its own. I
Yeah.
needed to make sure that it kept going because it was my baby. I created this thing, and it was a great, vibrant community. Um, so at that point, I was just like, well, we'll see what happens. So, anyways, earlier this year, I went on vacation, and an interested party approached me and hit it off. And they had the same values that I had, which was, keep it friendly, keep it going, um, keep up, the tech updated and all the fun stuff. So, anyways, it worked out. So that what that did is that it gave me an opportunity to slow down because this had been my life for like the last 7 years, to
Mm.
just think about other things. So I officially retired in April, and I mean, we were both at the Cybertruck or the Cyber Rodeo event,
Yeah.
and and I think you could tell that I wasn't right.
Yeah. No. And
I was
then I
distracted.
actually, I even saw the clip. I was driving by you as I was leaving. You were doing the walk on the
Oh,
beach
the beach
with your
thing.
left. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
My last
And
video.
then
Yeah.
obviously, I do know, what was it at the TeslaCon? Obviously, I think there
Yeah.
was a couple of things, I just knew something big was going to happen. So,
Yeah. Yeah. I actually wanted to announce it at TeslaCon, but the timing wasn't right. So, anyways,
Mm,
but yeah, it worked out. Everything's great. It's been gosh, it was 7 or 8 months now, and I'm still involved with the Tesla community, just not at the same level as I was before. So
of course, yeah.
the Twitter thing is just like a constant stream of just Tesla, Tesla, Tesla. It gets old after a while, so I had to back off a little bit, and now I just do a little bit more personal stuff. But obviously, with the Tesla event that we just had there with the semi and stuff, it just kind of like, okay, I like to jump in and give my 2 thoughts and just kind of continue with that. So that's where we stand at this point. It's phase 2, and I'm still enjoying myself. I'm still around, happy to help with other people. I answer questions. I get DMs all the time. People ask me questions. So I
Of
always
course.
always help out with that stuff. So
What are your thoughts on the community today? Obviously, starting from 7 years ago to like now. Now, I mean, part of it you have the Model 3 owners wave, literally. Just it's not the S and X. It's no longer the S and X. Super super expensive cars. Now you have like a little bit more attainable, 50, 60 thousand dollars. So obviously that's driven a bunch of change, along with the retail investors and Elon fans, and really just and kind of similar to the Apple culture in the early days of Apple, especially when the iPhone was coming out. Just
mm,
very tight, and maybe it's not even as tight really anymore. But
mm.
how have you seen it change, and maybe even any thoughts on like where it may be headed?
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned that. I have noticed a change, and it's not a change in the sense that it's for the bad or for the worse. It's just that you can't expect something to be the same forever. Things change and evolve. If you were to look at it and compare it to, say, an Apple community or whatever, the Apple community has been around forever. It's very mature. Um,
Yeah.
the advent of the iPhone changed Apple's fortunes completely, very much like Model 3 changed Tesla's fortunes.
Mm.
Um, Steve Jobs is no longer with the company anymore, and things have changed. Now, a lot of people like to say, well, Apple's not innovative anymore. All they do is make money. Yeah, they've figured out a formula to make a lot of money. But I would say that they are still, Apple's never been a company. Listen, this is not an Apple podcast, so let's not talk about Apple. Let's just focus on Tesla here. Sorry, I follow Apple as much as I do Tesla, so that's
It's all
I kind
good.
of get into that. But um, so Tesla's changed in the sense very much like Apple did, but on a much more accelerated scale. So early days were like, okay, you got a lot of S owners who kind of, and I'm generalizing here, so don't take this, don't be offended, but looking down at the Model 3 people and saying, oh, you guys aren't early adopters, and we're the ones who really paved the way. We're the guys who paid for that development. You get a little bit of that sentiment. And I get it. Model 3 comes out, and then of course it swallows Tesla's energies. So things like Roadster, Cybertruck probably wasn't anybody's glint at this point, but semi truck, for example, all that stuff had to be put off to the side because it was sink or swim for Tesla, right?
Mm.
They had to make Model 3 work, otherwise the company would have been, gone. So all their resources got put into that. Now that they're on solid footing, Elon's a little distracted now. He's spending more time at SpaceX. Now he owns Twitter, so he's doing the things, but you don't have to worry about Tesla. They're on good solid footing now financially. They've got a good solid product line and stuff. So I don't think Elon necessarily needs to be there sleeping on the factory floor like they used to, right?
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people equate Elon's distraction, if you will, with he doesn't care about Tesla anymore. I don't see it that way. He's very much involved with Tesla. It's just like it's not, sink or swim anymore, right? You don't have to worry about it quite as much. So I think people need to kind of set that a little bit of aside. Um, um, In other aspects, I think the community's changed in the sense that there's many more cars on the market now, so they're not quite as special. When the Model 3 first came out, it's like,
Mhm.
oh, I saw a Model 3, oh, I saw a Model 3, and then
Yep.
Model Y. And things are like, okay, the pandemic hit and it slowed down product releases, so we're still waiting on Cybertruck. It's delayed. And I think we're going to see a little bit more of that once Cybertruck hits the roads again. It's just, oh, it's going to be new all over again, right? So we're going to see this
Mhm.
in kind of waves as we progress. But the community has matured now. It's a little different. We're seeing a lot more less tech types now, just buying the car because, oh, it happens to be electric, I can save on fuel. It's not about, it's the tech, it's the software updates, it's the supercharge. It's none of that anymore. I mean, some people get that, but yeah. So we're seeing a very much a different crowd now that are buying the products.
Of
So
course.
but that's what happens. It's just like the iPhone. If you want to go back and talk about the iPhone, I mean, most people who bought an iPhone who are new to the Apple camp would have never bought a Mac in the first place. And now you go to any coffee shop and I see 10 Macs for every PC. And I lived through the bad
Yep.
90s of Apple going on, almost going out of business, where it was just like everybody was, well, Apple's going to go out of business. They're crap. They don't make good computers. And now it's just like, man, they're everywhere. So I think Tesla's very much in the same boat now, in the sense that it's an everyday car, and it's good. It's reliable. The early production issues have been ironed out, and that's just normal for any car. I've told you, I've owned a lot of cars over the years, and production problems and fit and finish are not a Tesla exclusive. I'm here to tell you, it can happen to any car. So
Yeah. Yeah. No, yeah, I think you made a really good point, because I was part of the Model 3 wave. One, obviously, I don't know how there wasn't an owners club in the headquarters. That was beyond me. But yeah, I've even seen that, especially as more and more are getting built. Now the Model Y is going to take it even a step further, because the going from a four-door sedan to kind of like a mini SUV, like that total addressable market's even like 4x. So it's really, and then now, it's more, especially with the way things are going with Elon, like his businesses, that what he owns is just becoming bigger and bigger and bigger, and he's doing more, right? And so because I think even when I joined the community, I only wanted to be focused on Tesla. But I don't know about you, it's like for me, I couldn't just, you hear about it, it was like Tesla, SpaceX, and obviously the Boring Company eventually. But you kind of just get engulfed into a little bit of everything, especially given how he's just disrupting so many industries. And obviously the Twitter stuff is going on right now, which is its own thing. But yeah, the community has changed a lot, and as you said, but it's partially inevitable, especially as like the iPhone came out, that changed the community, and we'll see where it goes. But yeah, I think I'm looking forward to seeing how Tesla develops as a company, how it matures, how with the Semi, it was really exciting to see all of those, just some of those be released. There was a video this past weekend of a Tesla Semi carrying a Christmas float,
I
through
saw that.
Modesto.
Mhm.
So it's just like, it's really exciting time. And, as we kind of all know, even through all that they've been through, this is really only the second or third inning in baseball terms of the company. And as you said, I would agree. I wouldn't be surprised if Elon's really just more laser focused on the specific things that he cares about, which are probably autopilot and maybe some of the new product releases. He's not going to be as focused on like he used to, where he probably was involved in a lot more of the financials and trying to just literally make this company stay afloat. But sorry, were you going to say something?
I was going to say, I'm sure you probably noticed that Elon's been sharing the stage with a lot more internal people with Tesla over the last couple of years.
Yeah, this one, I don't know. I think it was Dan Priestley or Dan.
Yep.
Yeah, he's a senior
Drew
manager.
Baglino there on Battery
Yep,
Day.
yep,
Yeah, so doing a
yeah,
lot more of the Apple stuff, whereas before it was, it was just Steve Jobs and nobody else. And then, of course, Tim Cook takes over, and now they feature a lot of internal people. So I'm seeing a lot more of that now with Tesla, and I'm actually happy to see that. Where it's not Elon's ego all the time. It's just nice to see some other people getting a little bit of the limelight. But
yeah.
as far as products
Similar.
are concerned, with Tesla, I think the Semi is a product. Obviously, we've been waiting 5 years for. But in the grand scheme of things, it's not a consumer-facing product, right? These are big companies that are going to own this, so it's not like, oh, maybe I'll buy a semi truck. What the heck are you going to do with that? Maybe you'll convert it into an RV, which I expect people to do it at some point. But in terms of exciting products, for the general consumer, it's not that exciting. For the trucking industry, it's huge. And I think that's going to do some big inroads with that. But again, it's going to take a few years to really see the results of that, because they got to ramp up production. We're still in a pandemic, and we're still in a supply chain crunch. So that's going to take some time. But I think the product I'm super excited for really is the Cybertruck. That thing is just going to turn the whole market upside down. And I'm very glad to see the F-150. The Rivian's very exciting. I can't wait to see what the Silverado EV is going to be like. So that's the last segment, if you will, in the consumer space that needs to go electric, which is these utility or pickup trucks, right? So I think the Cybertruck, on account, and a lot of people say, well, I hate the looks of it. Okay, fine, I get that. But you do also have to understand that the looks are, it's function over form, right? It has to do with the way that they have to build that truck. So if you can get that past your brain, you'll understand what the car is. But once we see the final spec sheet and of course the price, because it's it's not a $40,000 truck anymore. I'm sorry, it's just not going to happen.
Well, are you crazy? Come on.
Well, it's not going to be cheap. Just
No,
prepare.
I'm messing with you. Kind of like, I think you said the Model S went out at what, 49,000?
Yeah, they originally announced that the base model, and that's the thing.
Yep.
If you're new to the Tesla community. So Tesla, the way they operate is they'll announce a product, they'll announce here's the base price, but they never produce the base price vehicle first. It's always the high-end models first.
Yep.
And if they get around to it, maybe they'll do the low-end product. And a lot of the times it's like, well, there's no demand for the low-end product, so we'll just cancel it, right? So that's what I'm saying. Rear-wheel drive Cybertruck, forget about it. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, I wouldn't. Yeah, no, but and then I think what was it, Franz, when he was at the Peterson Museum, he talked about, they asked him what is his favorite product been. He actually said it's the future one. And at the semi event, they showed, a bunch of their segments, like the semi, the Model 3, the truck. And then they had the robo taxi. So I don't know if that's the one that, is what, but he had also, Elon has talked about a potential like bigger vehicle than the Model X, like more like a van. So who knows, like,
where's the
what
Roadster?
it's going to be.
Where's the Roadster?
I know. That's actually one point.
That was introduced the same time as the semi truck. What happened? Been put on the back burner, that's for sure. Almost indefinitely at this point.
And for the record, Trev has two that he won through the OG referral program.
Yeah, the very lucrative referral program, as I call it. Yeah. No, I'm very fortunate. But like I said, I spend this much time thinking about it because until it's in my driveway, I don't believe it. So
it's not vaporware, is it? Or
well, a lot of people say they're never going to do the car. They're never going to do the car. No, they're going to do the car. It's just not a priority. It'll happen when it happens. I think at this point we're 2024. We'll see.
Yeah, totally.
I hope it doesn't change looks. I mean, they did say they were going to change the looks. It's beautiful the way it is. It's 5 years old. It still looks great. Leave it alone.
Yeah, I don't. It would be hard to see the screen staying the same, though.
Well, that's the thing with Tesla is that their interiors, if anything on their cars, the interiors tend to change the most. I mean, the Model 3, we got lucky because they changed very little on the interior. But I don't know. There's something about the interior of the Roadster just doesn't. No, it's not. That's not production. They're going to do more Model 3 level, single screen horizontal.
Yep, totally. But yeah, no, a lot of exciting things. I mean, I'm glad that finally, at least they finally launched the semi. Got that under our belt, and hopefully next year, middle of 2023, I think is the timeline for production. And I don't know exactly when deliveries, but anytime. I assume next year is going to be the big year for the Cybertruck. So
absolutely.
I'm personally really excited for it. Got one on order, and I was one of those people. I waited a month.
Oh, really?
Just because, I was waiting
in line for a ride, and I was ordering one.
Exactly. First off, I wasn't sure if the wife was going to buy off on it, and secondly, the design still. I was like, similar in what you had mentioned earlier. It takes people a little bit of time to
Oh
let
yeah,
it settle in, and then it's
especially the
fine, right?
Cybertruck. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
There was so much digital ink spilt over the Cybertruck looks. But it's just like anything else. I mean, once you again going back, I mean, Tesla designers have been working on this thing for months and months and months, so they're already used to it. So when it comes out, it's just like okay. But the rest of the world was like, "What the heck are you guys thinking?" But it's been 3 years now. It's settled in. I mean, some people don't get the looks, and I get it. That's whatever. There's lots of cars that
yeah,
I don't like the looks of. But I think
yeah,
the thing with the Cybertruck that's really going to sell it is really the utility of this vehicle. The fact that Tesla's taken some time to kind of go back and add some features. Now, I know a lot of people, Elon has said many times before, we're never going to do a Model X again. That was a Fabergé egg. That was a mistake. And in some ways, I'm like, oh, you kind of doing it again, guys. Just maybe you should back off a little bit. We'll see. So, anyways, hopefully they haven't over-engineered it to the point where it's just going to turn into another, Model X fiasco type of thing. But
yeah. There's been some. I think the company that's making it, I forgot the name. It's like IDRA or something like that, and that's like
Hydra,
an
yeah,
acronym.
yeah,
Yeah, IDRA.
yeah.
Yeah. I think they're gonna make this as much as like one piece as possible. I think is gonna be the key to success there. But we'll see. Sorry,
Well,
were you gonna say something?
Cybertruck again. It's another one. Even though I'm not quite as active on, I watch and I pay attention. No, Cybertruck is going to be a dual casting, much like their other cars. So it'll have a front casting, like all their, the Model Y does. Going to have an exceptionally large rear casting because it not only has to support the suspension but also the bed. So that's why they're waiting on this big 9,000 or 12. Yeah, it's a 9,000 ton press. They need to make exceptionally large rear. I do believe that in due time, Tesla wants to build some kind of car in the sense, and who knows, maybe it'll be the robotaxi, or maybe a variant of another car, maybe this refresh Model 3. I don't know, where they can do the internal structure as much as they humanly can do as a single casting with some steel reinforcements and, of course, the A surfaces, which are the outside panels, in due time to really cut down on production time. Model 3 is one of those cars that, as far as cars that they make today at a volume scale, is ripe for, getting the front casting and then, some other improvements and stuff. Maybe even I think it's going to get a rear casting just like the Y does and get the plastic tub.
Yeah,
To reduce all those complex parts. Sandy Munro is very famous to talking about how bad the Model 3 body is and, all the improvements they made on the Y. So I expect all that stuff to happen on the 3. And it's typical for Tesla. They don't, it's almost like every car they come out with is almost bespoke in many ways, but then they will go back and then, add it later on. It's just they don't have the resources and the engineering to do everything all at once. Right. So it's just like, okay, we're going to do this. We're going to add the heat pump. We're going to do this. And then we'll go back and add it to the other products as they go through. So this new Model 3 Highland that's been spotted driving around, which is going to be the refresh. I think we're going to see maybe some small cosmetic changes on the outside, but I think the real tech is on the inside. Going to get that casting on the front and the back. And so, yeah. And you don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure this out. This is just how Tesla operates, right?
yeah, no, totally. Well, Trev, I just first off want to personally thank you for not only for your time today, but what you have done for our club. We wouldn't exist without you.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
And so, thank you for, again, paying it forward and just, being, just showing your kindness and helping us get those 25 VINs and to becoming what we are today. So I really appreciate it. And again, just, thank you on behalf of the community. Thank you for building one of the key pillars to it, which was Model 3 owners, and really, again, bringing people together.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
I think, we wouldn't be with where we are today without key people like yourself. So on behalf of the club and behalf of the community, I really appreciate your time today. So
that's my pleasure. Thank you for having me on, and thank you. And I should mention this: you've made me an honorary member, even though I'm in Kanakistan on the other side of the coast. But yeah,
You, yeah, no,
One
you'll
of these
always
days, I'm
be.
going to come down to the takeover, maybe with the Roadster if I get it.
Yeah. Well, let us know.
Well, my
We
plan
have.
is to thank people for getting me to the level of being able to get the Roadsters, is to actually take it on a North American tour eventually. So don't know when
Okay.
that's going to
So.
happen. It's just, but it will happen. So.
Okay, well, hopefully, we'll still be doing the takeover. But yeah, if you get bored and want to come in your Model Y, feel free to. It's July 29th and 30th of next year. So
I'll put it on the calendar. May or may not. We'll see. We'll see what happens. I've been trying to get to the last two. It's just been life gets in the way of things, And California is not exactly a 5-hour drive. So.
Yeah, well, we could do a quick test and see how fast you could get here.
Well, you know what? We drove. Brad, myself, and Ian. We drove to the Cyber Rodeo, and we drove from Toronto, Montreal, whatever, and stop over in Pittsburgh to pick up Brad. And yeah, we did that in how many hours was that? Gosh, I forget now. Some 40 hours or something. No, it was about 31 hours or whatever. And then Ian and I drove across Canada. We did that in 72 hours. I don't recommend doing that. It's too long. Don't do that.
Yeah.
Never.
But again. You set the record, right, for literally crossing Canada in an EV,
right? We did, yes. I see. Going from, say, California to New York City, that's about 2,800 miles. Canada's 3,800 miles. So it's it's 6,000 kilometers, 6,100 kilometers. And that's not even end to end. We didn't get to the other end. We only ended up at the last supercharger. We wanted to stay on the supercharger network. And the last one's in Halifax. So we could have gone all the way to Sydney, Cape Breton, or maybe even hopped over to the island there in Newfoundland, but there are no superchargers. So it's not like it hasn't been done. Some other guys have done Trans-Canada even longer than we did, using third-party chargers in addition. So it's certainly possible, but I don't recommend it. That's a long drive, even with your best friend.
Yeah, you guys were live tweeting the whole thing. It was pretty epic trip.
Yeah, it was pretty fun. Hasn't been broken yet, but that's what records are for, right? They're meant to be broken. So have at it, guys.
Well, awesome. But yeah, so thank you again, Trevor, for your time. I'm gonna close out with a couple last words, but thank you again.
Anytime.
Appreciate all of your time.
Appreciate it.
All right. So, Trevor's been a really good friend of the club, really good friend of mine, really good friend of Raj's as well. We're both, leaders of TOSV. So really just appreciate his time today, and just, sharing his knowledge, sharing his wisdom, and how he helped build the community. But yeah, thank you again for tuning in. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe button. Follow us on Twitter. We'll be doing hopefully a couple more of these interviews every couple weeks, just interviewing people that have played a key role in the community, potentially some ex-Tesla employees. But yeah, we'll keep it going. Feel free to add some comments on people you'd potentially like to see interviewed. But this is what it's about. And so thank you again, Trevor. Thank you to each one of you followers for tuning in. Have a great week.